It started as a simple invitation. The kind you almost say no to because you're convinced you won't fit in. They were friends of my mentor, people who had lived the kind of lives that already sounded like stories. I'd only met them once, fleetingly, after a lecture. They'd talked about travel, art, the way silence felt in large rooms. I'd nodded along quietly, not sure what told so when the message came. Dinner at our place, 8 p.m., nothing fancy. I hesitated. I was 26. They were twice my age. Maybe more. What could we possibly talk about? Still, curiosity has a way of stepping forward before logic does. I went. Their home sat on a quiet street where the pavement glowed gold under soft lamps. The moment I stepped inside, I realized nothing fancy meant effortless charm. Books stacked along a window seat. Jazz filtering from another room. The smell of rosemary and something sweet baking in the oven. They greeted me with calm smiles, the kind that come from people who have already learned not to rush anyone into conversation. Glad you came, one of them said, offering me a glass of something that looked like amber sunlight. You work too much, don't you? I laughed awkwardly. Is it that obvious? Completely. We sat down around a small wooden table already half set with dishes. They moved in sync, one lighting a candle, another adjusting the record player's volume, both speaking softly, like sound itself had manners here. For a while, I just listened. They told stories the way people paint, blending details with pauses, glances, and laughter. Every memory had texture. Something about the rhythm of their voices felt grounding. Like sitting inside a heartbeat that had learned patience. You're very quiet, one of them said eventually, smiling. I'm listening, I replied. They nodded approvingly. Good. Most people don't anymore. They just wait to speak. I didn't know what I expected that night to be, but it wasn't this easy calm mixed with curiosity that felt refreshingly adult. The more they shared, the more I felt myself listening past my age. Somewhere between dessert and another record, the clouds outside began to change color, deeper, heavier. One of them noticed. Rain's coming, she said. You don't have an umbrella, do you? I shook my head. Then you'll have to stay until it passes. Her tone was half joke, half decision. They moved to the living room, and I followed. The ambience softened. Window light turned silver. The record switched to an older melody, slower, lower, deliberate. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, tracing my finger along the rim of the glass, and then the conversation took a turn. Do you ever feel, he began, like youth is just an ongoing audition? Constantly, I replied. Like I'm performing competence. They both laughed. Good. You already see it. He leaned back, eyes thoughtful. When we were your age, we thought growing up meant becoming solid. Turns out, it's just learning how to stay flexible. Something in his words sank deep, settling with quiet weight. The rain arrived right then, light at first, then steady, soft percussion against the window. We talked over it. About uncertainty. About years that test you quietly. Every story they told carried a calm I hadn't found in people my age. No rush to prove, no urgency to wrap things in moral lessons. At one point, she leaned forward. What's the hardest thing you've learned so far? I took a while to answer. That being certain doesn't always make you right. Her smile widened slightly, like she'd been waiting for that answer. For a long time after that, none of us spoke. The rain held the silence for us. They surprised me by not filling the quiet. No reassurances, no advice. Just presence. The kind that said, this is enough. I thought I'd feel out of place that night, like a child in an adult story, but hours later, as the candle flickered low, the feeling shifted. They weren't treating me like someone on the outside looking in. They were making space, passing along something wordless, not wisdom exactly, but tone, rhythm, understanding. When I finally glanced at my phone, it was midnight. You'll have to stay until the rain stops, she repeated softly. Though the rain had already thinned into drizzle. I smiled. You planned that, didn't you? Maybe. He stood, stretching slightly. Rooms keep their warmth longer when someone new fills them. I didn't entirely know what that meant, but it sounded right. I stayed a little longer. Their house had a way of slowing time. Even the rain outside seemed to fall in rhythm with the music, a lazy hush. I remember thinking I'd leave soon, but one more story always found its way in. She brought out a small photo album next. Its edges were worn, corners soft from years of turning. Travel memories, she said, sitting beside me on the carpet. You can tell a lot about people by how they remember themselves. Each page was full of sunlight and motion, markets, cliffs, old cameras hanging from shoulders. He leaned over her, pointing to one photo of a younger version of himself standing on a mountain's edge. That was the moment, he said, smiling faintly. When we realized most things that scare you are less about danger and more about meaning. You climb higher just to see how small the world looks when you stop being afraid. I studied the photo, his face lit by wind, her presence just behind the frame. She said quietly, we spent years trying to catch life before it moved on. Then we learned it's better to meet it halfway. I wasn't sure why that sentence hit me so hard. Maybe because I'd been sprinting through my own years, trying to collect proof I was doing enough. Does it ever stop? I asked. That feeling that you have to keep earning your place? He shook his head. No. But it changes. You stop chasing approval and start collecting understanding. There was no grand advice. No list of lessons. Just calm words that somehow made room for all the noise inside me. At some point, I walked to the window. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The streetlight dripped with gold from puddled reflections. My own face in the glass looked softer, quieter. Behind me, I could hear them moving about, one rearranging books, the other humming a low unfamiliar tune. There was peace there, but also something else, honesty without fear. The kind of familiarity two people earn with decades of listening, laughing, forgiving. What surprised you most? I asked them, still watching the glass, about getting older. He answered first. That we still feel 16 some days. And that learning doesn't flatten out, she added. Wisdom isn't taller. It's wider. I turned toward them, slowly. You know, people my age talk about time like it's a countdown. You two make it sound like it's a language. She smiled. It is. You just haven't heard all its accents yet. There was a pause, a beautiful, satisfying kind. I could almost feel the air rearrange itself. When I finally stood to leave, they didn't insist I stay or rush me out. They simply walked me to the door. The hallway lights cast amber patterns along the walls. She handed me my coat as he opened the door to drizzle damp air. The city smelled freshly washed. Learn to notice, she said, fastening my collar. That's all we really do here, notice, and keep noticing. Her hand lingered a beat longer than polite. There was warmth there that wasn't about age or difference, it was about a recognition of effort, a silent you belong here too. He stepped forward slightly, adding, come back sometime. Bring stories of your own. We have space. I laughed. You might regret that invite. Doubt it, he said, smiling. As I stepped onto the porch, the early hours of morning brushed faint blue at the horizon. The world felt quieter than it should. They stayed at the doorway until I reached the end of the street, a soft halo of light behind them. I didn't see them again for a few weeks. Life, predictably, filled itself with deadlines and chatter and constant proof-seeking. But something subtle had shifted. My pace at work slowed. My exhale felt less rushed. I even started cooking meals that took time, letting quiet be part of the recipe. One evening, weeks later, I received another message. You absolutely must see the park today. The camellias have bloomed. No hello, no names. Just that, when I arrived, they were sitting on a bench under a sweeping tree, sunlight catching the last drops from the afternoon shower. 2 cups of coffee. One empty space between them. I sat. No one spoke immediately, we simply looked out at the flowers trembling in light breeze. The air fragrant with wet earth. He finally said. You look like you've learned to slow down. Trying to, I admitted. It's strange. Everything feels stronger when you stop rushing past it. She laughed gently. That's the real surprise we meant for you. That I'd learn to slow down? That it would change what you believe about being young, she said. Half our age doesn't mean half our understanding. Sometimes you just notice what we forget to see again. The words settled like warm rain. I smiled, realizing their surprise wasn't about wisdom or lessons. It was about generosity, the quiet way understanding passes forward if you're willing to receive it. We sat a while longer, watching sunlight drip through leaves. Then I did something small but meaningful. I turned my phone off, slid it into my pocket, and looked straight ahead, fully present, and once again, I couldn't look away.